All right, good evening. It is evening for me. This is the first process video for the color studies project. This should be the second video that you're watching. The first video will have my face and I introduce the project. This is the first video where I kind of show you the steps. So you're going to use your tracing paper. You can take it out, or you can, if you've got like a magazine that you're using, you can just slide the magazine image under your tracing paper. I'm just taking mine out and setting that aside. I picked a photographic image. You want something that has where you can see the value. So you don't want something that's just like a coloring book outline. You want something that is actually a photograph with lights, midtones, and dark areas. You want it to be fairly simple, so you don't want there to be too many things in the image that you're going to have to trace. So I would keep it to something that has 3 to 4 objects in the image. And then it doesn't really matter how you place your tracing paper, because you're going to be able to move your tracing paper around when you transfer the image to your Bristol. I'm using a mechanical pencil, and you shouldn't really need to tape it down because, like I said, choose something that's not so difficult with so many elements. And you might want to actually also trace around, like there's a shadow here on the baseball. You might want to also trace around shapes that you see that are created by big areas of shadow, because you can incorporate that into your color study. You're not trying to make a photographic, realistic copy of this. This shouldn't take you very long, although the more time that you spend, kind of the more satisfied you will be with the results. If there are numbers or letters, it's up to you if you want to trace them. But there are a lot of creases and wrinkles in this guy's uniform, and you're simplifying the image. So I'm just tracing around them and getting kind of the big shapes. There's kind of a big shadow across here. But there's a lot of things that I'm skipping. You do want to, include enough of the shapes that you get interesting images or interesting shapes. And if you get confused, like I got kind of right there, just flip up your paper. And that's why it's nice to use a mechanical pencil, because it's easy to erase. I kind of like that I have that line right there, so you can actually add things as you're working. Again, don't try to make this a complete reproduction of every line and crinkle. Try to reduce it down and simplify it down to basic shapes. Paying attention to areas where there are highlights and shadows. And you can see, just like with the ruler, with using the ruler in the video for the 9 dots project, it's a good idea to keep moving the hand and the fingers around that you're not tracing with. And you also see that I am planting my pinky, and that helps me keep my hand stable, and it also helps me keep the tracing paper in place. So tracing. You may want to go a little bit slower than what I'm doing, but for the purposes of an example, a demo, I want you guys to see the process without getting too bored with watching my videos. I think the ground does something here. Yeah, it just kind of goes around the back of that guy's mitt. And I want to include the triangle right here. And that's what I'm going to take away from this. Now, what's important is once you have your tracing, looking at your photograph, you're going to actually label. Oh, and I should also tell you that if you want to include little marks to show you the frame of your photograph, you can, or you can extend that onto your Bristol. It doesn't really matter. But what you want to make a note of are the darkest parts. And so I would come up with some kind of code, like L is light for me, or like a highlight. M is going to be mid-tone. So that's kind of like a medium. And then D is going to be a shadow, or kind of like the darkest colors or tones. And so his helmet, and it sort of, you know, blends into his face as well, and then this part of his glove, and I see that I kind of missed a line there. So since there's a difference between this value and the value of his skin here, that's going to be an M, and that's going to be a D. So I'm going to separate that. I didn't have a line there before. Okay, and then his pants are, there's a lighter value here, kind of a middle value here, and this is going to be important later because you're going to assign these new colors. So it's kind of like a paint by number sort of idea. The yellow is the lightest color. I mean, compared to like dark blue, yellow looks like almost like a highlight or a light, so that's going to be light. And notice, you know, this is not by accident. This photographer, you know, utilized all the range of value and contrast here, because you've got yellow and you've got black, you've got mid-tone grays, the mid-tone of his skin against this dark black helmet and gloves, and this glove here contrasting against that white uniform. And he's also using, he or she, whoever took this photograph, is kind of using these diagonals to make this really interesting. Okay, so you're going to continue through. If yellow is a very light value, red would sort of be in between, right? It's not as dark as the black, but it's not as light as the yellow, and the green is somewhere in between here, but I'm going to go ahead and assign it an M. So don't overthink it too much. You just want to kind of give yourself a map of where your darkest colors are and where your lightest colors are. And all around here, this the brown dirt is also a medium, but you're going to keep referring to this photograph as you paint or color with markers, or even use cut paper, whatever you're going to be using for your colors. An alternative to this is to doing the colors is to actually use the ink that I provided for you for the ink blot or the Rorschach project that you should have finished already before you start this. And you can dilute that with water and do this completely in as a grayscale if you don't have any other means of getting, you know, markers or paint. So after you get this all traced and you start to map this out, you're still going to refer to this because you're still going to make some nuances between, like maybe making this medium a little bit darker than this medium, but you're going to reassign different colors to this. Okay,